Hey, hello everybody, here's what's coming up tonight on News Center Now. If you're a landlord and your tenant trashes your place, what can you do about it? We'll take a look.
Plus, have you noticed a change at the gas pump? Prices seem to be going up. We'll take a look at that as well.
Also, we'll tell you about our new initiative here at News Center, Million Meals for Maine.
And our Week 1 Hometown Showdown. This is News Center Now.
And I'm Lee Goldberg. Normally landlord-tenant drama, not exactly something that's newsworthy, but this story you're about to hear involves your taxpayer dollars. Last week, News Center brought you the story of a pair of landlords in Portland who were furious after their tenant of 11 years moved out and left the apartment completely trashed. Part of that rent was being paid for by city government because the tenant was using Section 8 housing. Leaving the ruined Portland apartment behind, the tenant then moved to another Maine city, kept her housing voucher, and faced no consequences.
That story got a big reaction on our social media accounts with hundreds of shares and more than 600 of you weighing in with your comments. Now it looks like this isn't an isolated case. News Center's Christina Rex is here with an interesting piece of mail she received this week. Christina?
Lee and Jess, I received an anonymous letter in a company-marked envelope from someone claiming to work for Portland Housing Authority. This alleged employee suggests that the landlords were right in this case and that their experience is a sign of a bigger problem. I cannot give you my name because the executive director would fire me if he ever found out I spoke with the media. That's how the letter starts. It goes on to say that this tenant violated her Section 8 voucher, which clearly states that the tenant must not damage the unit or premises. In an anonymous phone call, that tenant admitted to cigarette burns on the ground and urine from multiple animals, both clear violations of her lease. I spoke multiple times with Mark Adelson, the executive director of Portland Housing Authority, about this issue. Based on what I have witnessed, this tenant clearly violated this, so why was their voucher not removed?
Well, it wasn't brought to our attention. We expect the landlord to bring that to our attention.
And the landlord claims they did bring it to your attention after the tenant moved out.
Right, and after that, we expect that to take place while the tenant's in tenancy, so this makes it a very different situation.
He says landlord Paul Taylor should have said something before the tenant moved out, but she's already gone, and the PHA can't revoke her voucher now.
We just expect the landlords to do thorough examinations of their apartments on a periodic basis and to know these things about their tenants.
A lot of things are bubble-gummed up before I get there. They know their inspection's coming, they fix a lot of things.
Over the 11 years the tenant lived at the apartment, the Taylors threatened to kick her out twice because of multiple lease violations. One letter was even signed by the Housing Authority, showing that they knew about these problems during her stay. But when she packed up and moved out, the Housing Authority says she passed her final inspection, despite the obvious damage to the house. Now she lives in another Maine city with a housing voucher, subsidized by taxpayers. News Center obtained a copy of that final inspection. And in that, it identified those cigarette burns among several other pieces of damage, but that tenant still passed inspection. Why is that?
Cigarette burns in their own don't disqualify or don't mean that it won't pass our housing quality standards, which is the measure or standard we use that's required by HUD.
Would you agree that those are fairly low housing standards?
They are the housing standards that we have, and we have to use them.
Paul Taylor listened to our interview with the director. He is still not satisfied.
Frustration is she got to move on to another landlord and do the same thing.
The anonymous letter author agrees, writing, "Certainly Portland Housing could have and should have pulled their voucher." And either way, the next landlord ends up with a tenant known to be destructive or worse. And that landlord, Paul Taylor, says his verbal complaints are falling on deaf ears. He plans to send a formal written complaint to the Housing Authority and then take his case to court. Lee and Jess,
All right, Christina, thank you very much. So do you have questions about Portland's housing shortage or maybe rental agreements in the Augusta area? Housing is certainly an issue that affects all of us.
So ask us your questions. Open our Facebook Live right now where you can see the behind-the-scenes view of our show and tell us what you want to know. Use the hashtag #AskNow, and we will see what we can find for you.
All right, this Labor Day weekend might not be a great one for the beach.
Keith, we have a few showers in the forecast, right?
Yeah, not much of a beach weekend. It didn't stop me from taking my shirt off, though, Lee. Let's see that on,
Come on now.
on Twitter.
People are eating dinner.
It's on the,
What's the matter with you?
find a way to work it in like a good Instagram poster. All right, current temperatures in the 60s and 50s. It was cool today despite the sunshine, and it's going to be downright chilly tonight. We have some high thin clouds out there. Those will tend to thin out, though. You look for a couple of things, right, when you look for a chilly night in the fall and into the winter, of course, is that you have a lack of cloud cover and you have relatively light winds and low dew points. So we have all of those things in place. So the National Weather Service has hoisted a frost advisory for the inland communities into the mountains here of New Hampshire and western parts of Maine. By the way, this is a wind advisory for down east Maine as winds continue to kick up there. But the frost advisory is something you want to pay attention to because tonight temperatures will drop into the 30s in a lot of spots. 36 in Berlin, 37 in Freiburg, 39 in Lewiston. Should be in the low 40s even along the immediate coastline. And I think low 40s, upper 30s in Greenville and up into Caribou as well. So guys, this, by the way, is kind of ahead of schedule. We're about 10 to 15 degrees cool for this time of the year. Summer, though, not over. The full forecast in a few minutes does include some 80s.
I'm just happy you have clothes on at this point. So
is the rest of the viewership.
I think we can all vote on that 100%. Do we need a pulse poll for that?
Pulse poll.
All right, we are hundreds of miles away. It's got to be Friday from the storm, but Maine drivers are feeling the effects of Harvey at the gas pump. Some of you reached out to us, and they're still doing it right now on social media, saying, what's up with rising gas prices? This is a nationwide problem. Drivers all over the country are left wondering when the prices will actually start to go down.
Now, according to AAA of New England, gas prices are the highest they've been all year. In Maine, the average price is $2.49 a gallon, a 6-cent jump from yesterday and up 12 cents compared to a week ago. Nationally, the average price today is $2.51 a gallon, a 16-cent hike from 1 week ago. There are a couple of things contributing to that rising price at the pump. According to AAA, first, it's Labor Day weekend, big travel weekend, and families are fueling up for long road trips. Second, refineries and pipelines in Texas are either shut down or just starting to assess the damage from Hurricane Harvey. So the East Coast gets 50% of its fuel supplies from the Gulf Coast, but Maine relies a little bit more on Canada and Europe, according to the Maine Energy Marketers Association. But Texas refineries hope to be back online soon.
As a region, there will be gasoline. Yes, there may be pockets that take a few days to get refueled, but I don't believe a week from now that this will be an issue. There's just so much gasoline in inventory. Pipelines are coming back online. The logistical problems are working out, so this is not going to be a long-term issue.
Let's take a look at the numbers, though. The entire world uses 100 million barrels of refined product daily. The U.S. refines 18 million of that. 6 million barrels are refined in Texas. Only about half of that is offline because of Harvey. Now, already 2 major refineries in Texas are powering up again, and AAA says prices will go down again, but probably not until mid to late September. All right, in other news, a popular toy sends a boy to the emergency room.
I thought that maybe they would be on there until my finger eventually got purple.
A fidget spinner stuck on his finger, and doctors had no idea how to get it off. That amazing story when we come back.
And have you seen this video on social media today? This nurse in Salt Lake City says police tried to arrest her for doing her job. Details after the break.
So school's about to start up again, and that means fidget spinners are returning to the classroom.
A few months ago, we told you about these toys that are designed to help some kids focus in school, but for some classrooms, they ended up being more of a nuisance.
Yeah, and for one child, a fidget spinner turned into a medical nightmare. I absolutely want to warn you, some of these images might be a little disturbing.
The boy spent 16 hours in 2 different hospitals with that spinner stuck on his finger. And the only solution required power tools and a guy without any medical training whatsoever.
He's screaming, I'm crying, and it was just so stuck and so painful.
Extremely scared. I thought that maybe they would be on there until my finger eventually got purple.
A Tempe boy's terrifying trip to the emergency room, all because of this fidget spinner. By now you've seen these fidget spinners, but this one slips onto your finger. The Genji Shuriken hand spinner is advertised as a toy for kids, based off a popular video game. Sam Rhodes had recently bought one with his allowance money.
I barely pushed on my finger and it just popped right on.
But taking it off would not be easy.
So we tried soap, we tried oil, we looked on the internet and tried tricks that we saw.
Nothing worked, so Sam's mom took him to the ER.
Dr. David said, the first thing we're gonna try is the ring cutter, and that didn't even scratch it.
The spinner, made from an alloy metal, is incredibly strong.
I mean, it didn't even make a mark. So they said, we don't have the equipment at this point now to help you.
So it was on to Hospital 2, Cardin's Children's Hospital. And this wasn't the first time they'd seen the same predicament. It was the third.
I had a patient previously, like a month prior, who had a very similar fidget spinner stuck on his finger.
So nurses knew exactly what to do. And it didn't involve a doctor.
We get a lot of surprises over here at times, so.
Meet Greg Earhart, the maintenance guy.
It's the third time I've been asked to cut off rings on people's fingers.
So once again, Greg, the maintenance guy, got out his fiberglass saw and came to the rescue.
I went through 4 cutting blades, cutting the outside and the inside ring off.
After 2 hospitals, 16 hours, and 4 broken saws, Sam's finger was finally fidget-free.
I got it. There we go.
I was extremely happy because I knew it was finally over. I thought that maybe they would be on there for the rest of my life.
Just a good feeling, yes.
Now Sam and his mom want to make sure this doesn't happen to any more kids.
Especially don't buy ones with open holes meant to put your finger on.
And that spinner is available online. Sam bought his on Amazon. I reached out to Amazon. A spokesperson tells me that they're investigating.
All right, so we tried to find the particular fidget spinner on Amazon, but when we got to the product page, there was an error message and no fidget spinner for sale. All right, so you gotta check this out. Body cam footage that's sparking outrage across the country. This nurse in Salt Lake City, Utah, arrested because she refused to let detectives draw blood from an unconscious patient. She says the police didn't have a warrant and she would not give up vials of blood for an investigation.
The only job I have as a nurse is to keep my patients safe. A blood draw is not, it just gets thrown around there like it's some simple thing, but blood is your blood. That's your property.
The police department says she was released right after the altercation and was never charged with a crime. The department also launched an investigation. Well, it's a long weekend, but it won't be an entirely sunny weekend. Keith will be in next with his full forecast.
And the 5th quarter is kicking off tonight across our state. Hometown Showdown after the break. High school football is back in Maine tonight, and the fans have voted. The Hometown Showdown is Brunswick and Messalonskee.
And in 2014 and 2015, the only team Brunswick lost to in the regular season was Messalonskee. Now the Dragons begin to defend their Class B state title, and as Chris Costa shows us, the head coaches of both teams have some history too.
Set, ready, set!
The hype is real in Brunswick.
Ready.
Excitement comes easy for the defending state champions.
I want a one shade here.
As the week goes on, you get more excited as Friday comes.
Fantastic. Hold up!
Keeping the energy up in practice is part of the game plan.
Ready, break!
Senior Dalton Dickey says it helps them prepare for a tough Messalonskee Eagles team.
Great feel.
We love playing Messalonskee. It's a hell of a week.
Don't get upset. Focus on what you can do the next play to get it done.
Oh, it's just the smash mouth football. There's 2 running teams. We're just going to run at each other, and it's going to be a good game.
While the Dragons find their ways to get amped up, at Messalonskee, it's all business. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Well,
Here we go.
there's only 2 good days in the week. That's Thursday night supper and the game. The rest of the week's hard.
The Eagles have beaten the Dragons before, ending Brunswick's runs at undefeated seasons.
I think it's kind of our turn now because they had a heck of a team last year, and I think we'll be fine this year.
Definitely something I noticed when I looked at the schedule and something we've been preparing for all summer.
Get up, Anthony. Go. While Coach Brad Bishop's style
Longhorn
seems far different than Coach Dan Cooper's,
here we go.
They share some history.
Oh, easy, cowboy.
Spending 6 years working together.
What a great way to start against a great team. I've always looked up to him a great deal. When they're not playing for us, I'm rooting for them, and I'm sure he's doing the same.
You want more sauce than that?
After practice, both teams have big dinners the night before the game, thanks to the players' parents.
This is our own little pep squad, I guess, if you would.
And while the student pep squads, the cheerleaders, prepare for their roles on Friday night, the boys on both fields can feel it.
Football's in the air. High school is starting, college is starting. Everyone's excited.
That game kicks off at 7 o'clock, and of course, we will have highlights from games all across the state tonight at 11 on the 5th quarter.
The problem of food insecurity and people going hungry is not only something that happens in other places, it's a big problem in our state as well, a major one.
There are hundreds of food pantries across the state that service the 200,000 people in Maine who do not have the ability to get enough healthy food. And those numbers are staggering to a lot of Mainers. They are surprising.
People understand because it's hard to really fathom that so many Mainers are struggling. So many of our neighbors, although they're working hard, we're talking about working families here, seniors, children, people are struggling to access enough food.
Now, this giant problem is why we're launching News Center's Million Meals for Maine campaign. Our goal is to raise enough money to help the Good Shepherd Food Bank supply 1 million meals to Mainers and carve a path towards ending food insecurity in our state. For some context, a $1 donation helps provide 4 meals. Head to our website or mobile app to learn more about the campaign, and please make sure you spread the word. A very, very worthy, obviously, campaign. So speaking of food, if people want to cook out on Monday might not be bad.
Yeah. Tomorrow's not bad either. Really, it's just Sunday.
Don't cook out on Sunday.
It's the way it falls in the middle, which is somewhat unfortunate, and it breaks a streak of Sundays. Remember how many Sundays we had?
Oh,
I think
had
this
to
would
go
be
to work on Sunday.
Yeah, like 12 straight Sundays were nice until this one. So that ends the streak. But we don't have to hear Jess complain about it, so that's something. Are you off this Sunday though?
Yes.
Oh, that's. It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny. All right, here's a look at the advisories. We have a frost advisory in effect, the shaded blue areas where it's going to be quite chilly tonight. And then we have a wind advisory in this kind of tannish color over down east where the winds continue to be gusty. Overnight lows, I actually took these numbers and tweaked them down a couple of degrees from when I just showed them to you because I felt like they were just overshooting a bit. 40 in Bangor, 36 in Freiburg, 36 in Berlin as well. We'll see some readings in the mid-30s here by early tomorrow morning. Even right along the coastline, we're in the 40s and low 40s at that. So gusty winds will settle down later tonight. High pressure builds in. Good looking day tomorrow. Not a hot day. It'll be around 70, 71 for a high, which means much of the day will be spent in the 60s. And then the remnants of Harvey will move in on Sunday from southwest to northeast. The rain moves in there, heavy at times, late afternoon through the evening, and then we should clear out in time for Monday. And Monday's partly cloudy, but it's also the warmest day of the holiday weekend, getting into the mid and some upper 70s. So our by-hour forecast on Saturday is sunny through the entire day, no problems there at all. Sunday morning may turn out not that bad. It may start with a little bit of sunshine, but the clouds start working in, and here comes the rain as well over southern Maine in through the mid-coast by late afternoon and through the early evening, raining overnight, and then again we should get that out of there by Monday morning such that we're cleared out for Monday afternoon. All right, all eyes in the weather community is on this storm here, this hurricane Irma, which has just been re-upgraded to a Category 3. Look at this thing. Good symmetry, really strong eye wall. Eye is clear as well, almost has kind of an annular look to it. This storm is going to be a big deal in one way or another. We just don't know where it's going to go yet, unfortunately. Computer models all do track it off here to the west, and move it towards the Lesser Antilles, and this is mid next week, just to give you some perspective. What happens after that is just a shotgun blast of solutions. This isn't an analogy. This is actually the two computer model differences. One had Florida, the other had a landfall in southern New England. So we've got a huge area that we have to watch here, and that's going to take about 14 days to get there. Before it happens, though, guys, the steering players there are going to give us some humidity for Tuesday and Wednesday. And if I hear anyone complain about it, I'm not going to be happy, because we're talking about slipping back into fall. Well, this will be back into warmth. Look at Tuesday. Tuesday is in the mid-80s inland. The dew points will be in the mid-60s. And I think that's really the thing that makes it feel like fall or not fall, is it's been really crisp lately. So we'll be back to the humidity for a few days. But again, I don't think anyone will complain.
No, call out sick on Tuesday or
yeah,
something
Tuesday
like that,
looks great. I think Jess is working on Tuesday. She just doesn't know it yet.
Something's
No,
happening in
that
my
Jess,
lung.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
yeah.
thank you. There we go.
All right, you guys keep talking. Meanwhile, we'll go see Cindy, see what's coming up at 5:30.
All right, thanks, guys. Are you headed to Bar Harbor this weekend? Well, you are not going to be alone. Restaurants in that area and Acadia National Park are expecting really large crowds for the weekend. We'll check that out. And an unlikely carpool. What would you do if you found this furry little creature hitching a ride in your car? Those stories and more all coming up in the next half hour. Back to you guys.
I would keep him.
Yeah, we
That's
know what
I
you
would
would
say.
do. All right, we'll come back with some brain drops after the break. All right, we got some numbers, we got some random letters. What's up?
There's a lot going on here. I got a couple of viewer questions about how come Bangor and Portland have different sunset, sunrise times every day on our almanac. Well, this is the rough equation for how you calculate day length. And it's day length, latitude, and the Julian day of the year. So the only thing that's going to change from, say, Portland to Bangor and Caribou is going to be latitude in that equation. So that's what changes it. By the way, this is just a rough approximation. Let's show this other graphic. Because it's not that easy to calculate for a couple of reasons. One, the Earth wobbles. Two, I don't know if you knew this, the Earth bulges a bit near the equator.
Like at Thanksgiving.
So yeah, it's not a perfect. It's not a perfect sphere in any way. The last thing to think about latitude is sunset is basically just a horizon issue, right? So when you look at the angle, the zenith angle here, the farther north you are, the shallower that angle is. So it just goes below the horizon that much quicker, earlier than it would farther south. So even, again, within Maine, there's changes there.
I'm going to send all my math problems to you. I'm just so glad you're here.
So are my kids. My kids are going to do the same thing. Right. Ask Keith. I don't know. So the Earth may wobble, but it won't fall down.
Right.
Just like the
That's
Weebles,
true.
right? All right. We got to go. News Center at 5:30 is up next.